So it's my honor to introduce our first presenter today, Lilly Inglut.
Bravo, everybody.
Bravo.
Thank you for coming to this presentation. For those of you who don't know me, like Drew said, I'm Lilly Inglut. I am a junior English education major and theater minor. And today I'm going to present about my experience this past January in Rwanda with a focus on the power of being present. So a little bit of my backstory about why I wanted to go on this trip in the first place. I first heard about the trip when I met Eve when I was a junior in high school. And now a junior in college, things come full circle and the universe kind of guides you if you listen. And I ended up being fortunate enough to go. So why did I want to go so bad? Why Rwanda? I had learned about the Rwanda genocide through Eve talking about her experience, and I just needed to see it to believe for myself that people are able to reconcile and forgive and flourish after such an atrocity as a genocide. So to give you some background in case you don't know, the Rwandan genocide began on April 7th, 1994 and lasted for 100 days. It resulted in the deaths of 1 million people, so if you do the math, that's approximately 10,000 a day. And the way they were killed was not with a gun. It was not like the German Jewish Holocaust genocide. It was brutal attacks with machetes and farming tools, and it was a personal genocide motivated by the government, white people, if you will. So now they're in a process of reconciliation, as I mentioned, and there's a judicial process where they can forgive each other and apologize to one another wholeheartedly to work through this terrible time they had in 1994. And now it's a big deal for them to educate the children and everyone who visits and lives there about what happened, with an idea that they will never forget it and will not let it happen again. So one way that they educate is through memorials. And this is a picture of the Bisesero Memorial, which was one of the last memorials we visited while we were in Rwanda. And this is one of 9 rooms spread out across 3 different buildings that shows skulls and bones of people who lost their lives to the genocide. And memorials are not only a place to become educated, it's also a place where families will visit people they have lost. There are mass graves at quite a few of the memorials where people can go and just have a moment of solidarity and silence to remember the people they've lost. So, as I mentioned, I hope to focus on being present. So what does that mean? As a noun, it is the period of time now occurring. They are happy and at peace, refusing to think beyond the present. A synonym would be now, today, the present time or moment, the here and now. In a sentence, forget the past and think about the present. So one thing that we do with the Anne Frank Project that we did a lot of in Rwanda was becoming present as a community. So here we are today, we have a community that I appreciate so much. I'd like to take a moment to just become present. So if you could, let's take a deep breath in through our nose together and out through our mouths. Now I want you to watch my hands, and we're going to do something that Drew and Eve lead us through all the time, and I just would like you to clap when I clap. So we're focusing here, we're not worrying about what's going to happen, we're just here. Shake it out, shake it out. Take a deep breath. And out. One more time. Not bad, not bad. So now there's a difference between 5 minutes ago when we were all, kind of gathering, getting to know each other a little bit more, and where we are now. We're here, and I appreciate that. So let's start the trip off with a place where I was struggling with being present. We had just landed after a 12-hour flight on the very comfortable Ethiopian Airlines plane, and we were in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Here it is on the map, and we were waiting for our next flight to depart to get to Rwanda. It was the last leg of our travel to get there. And I was at my wit's end, and I remember sharing some time with Dan, like, man, when are we going to get there, or when are we going to go home? Because I had no idea what time it was in Eastern Standard Time. I didn't really know what time it was where we were. Everything was just chaotic in my mind. So this was a struggle to be present. So So moving forward, after 2.5 hours on a pretty turbulent flight, we made it to Kigali. And for those of you who have read my blog post, I shared that when we landed, even when we landed in Ethiopia, I looked out the window and thinking about that time that I really had prayed I would make it to Rwanda while I was still in high school, I shed a tear because I was like, this is a dream. This is like my Disney pilgrimage. So it was really remarkable to actually make it there. So this is a map of Rwanda that was at our hostel in Kigali, which is the capital city of Rwanda. It's pretty central. It's actually on the map up there, the little red dot. And it's geographically the size of the state of Vermont. Just to give you some context on how much ground we covered, we were pretty much all over the whole entire place. Rural areas, cities, everywhere. And when we got there, they still had Christmas decorations. In every store you went into, there was like a little lopsided Christmas tree everywhere, which was really neat. So this was one of the memorials and killing site that we visited, and it was Nyamata Church and killing site. And this picture, you would never see something like this on the internet, and I almost feel funny about putting it in the presentation, but it's for educational purposes to show you that the way they memorialize is to preserve what happened. So these clothes on these church pews are the clothes of the victims who were murdered here. And you can see there's a thick coat of the dust and dirt because they've been here for over 20 years now. And these are some of the big arrangements people would bring when they were like, like I mentioned before, they'd come visit family members they've lost. And a lot of them say things like, never forget, or we won't forget you. So this, you can kind of see in this photo, there's like bullet holes on the walls, everything's preserved the way it was. So as you can see, this is something that kind of just rushes you into the moment and you want to distract yourself. And I had a struggle with being present here still because I questioned humanity like I never have before. And we can go to the next photo, I'll talk about it more. So this was still at Nyamata. There's an outside mass grave area and a crypt you can go into underground with the remains of over 45,000 people. And I felt pressured to go in to really understand the facts of the genocide, but I knew that it was going to be tough for me. So after everyone had gone in, Crystal went with me graciously, and I didn't even make it to the bottom step. Really steep stairs, really tight, and the smell of the air changed, the thickness, you felt it, and it hit you like a train. So I came back up, and this is when I came up, and Molly was here, and this was a moment, well, like I mentioned before, it was difficult to be present because I was questioning humanity. Like, how could you do this? How could even one person do this to another person, let alone the 45,000 that we were looking at? So moving forward, this was in the backyard of our hostel. We bring a play with us to Rwanda that we use called Anne Frank in Rwanda, and each year the students adapt it. And this year, with the help of Crystal's knowledge of step, we adapted it with some step movements. And we were rehearsing here because we knew we were going to tour this play a little bit. We went and performed at a refugee camp, and I'm going to talk about one of the best performances I've had of it in a couple slides. So the night before we went to a prison camp, I'm putting it in quotes on purpose, I had a lot of hesitancy, and I talked with Eve about going to this place because she had been there. And I knew we were going to be looking into the eyes of perpetrators from the genocide, and a lot of moral questions came up for me. How do I go about this? Should I treat them as human? Do they deserve, to be treated like humans? But then would I be awful if I didn't see them as humans? I had already spent time seeing that, looking at those skulls, that could have easily been me or you as a victim. But it was tougher for me to see that the perpetrators, that could have easily been me or you, given different circumstances. So more about the prison camp. It's called Gikomero Tige Camp, and the TIG acronym in French is Travail d'intérêt général. In English, it loosely translates to general interest work, or I would call it community work, if you will. So they're doing work for the general public. And this photo I found from a man's website. He had a blog when he went to Rwanda in 2009. And this is an idea of what they do. These men are going through a reconciliation process that I mentioned, and they are going to families that they have affected in the genocide, and they are working through things within themselves with faith, reconciliation, peace, and moving forward. And they're also physically rebuilding the land that they destroyed in the genocide. Many of them were farmers before they were perpetrators, so they are handy with tools, and here they are. They start building buildings from the bottom up. They excavate and they make the bricks with clay themselves, carry them on their heads. Most of them don't wear shoes even, and they build buildings for the community. So this was the day that we were at the Tish camp. It's down in one of these little valleys here, the land of 1,000 hills. And it was a gorgeous day, if you couldn't tell from the picture. So the sun was beaming, the clouds were beautiful, it was a gorgeous day. So the juxtaposition of that hesitancy in this beautiful day equaled out to be the story I'm about to tell. Hesitant, right? So this was when we first met the Tish camp prisoners, and the hesitancy was starting to slip away a little bit. But you see there was like a barrier of bushes and rocks. It was kind of like a mental thing of, okay, they're still separated from us. But what you do when you meet any group of people in Rwanda is you share song, dance, clapping, and you are totally present and focused in that moment, not worrying about what these men have done, what they might do. You're just together. So this was step one of humanizing perpetrators of the genocide for me, because you could see them smiling and dancing, and we were sharing that moment together. So this is a photo of my dad and me, if you couldn't tell by the striking resemblance. And I put this in here because this day with the Tish camp perpetrators has a special place in my heart that I think about several times a day. I ended up, when we were talking with them, with that bush between us, we had our fearless guide Eric translating for us. And we were having a conversation, a back and forth about America, and we got to the idea of what prison system in America is like versus this that they were at. So I ended up sharing the story that unfortunately my father took his own life as a result of the prison system in America because he did not want to go back. And that beautiful picture of this beautiful day, I was looking up into those clouds and I felt him there, and I felt that I was using his story for good to help these men to understand that they really almost have it good. And they knew that already, but as soon as Eric translated the story, I felt eyes come to me, and that was the first and probably the most present moment of my life, that I knew that even though we didn't share the same language, we were all there and honed in on it. So after I told the story, I remembered, oh crap, we have to do the play. I'm a crying mess, but still happy through my tears. But I felt that moral question came back. How am I going to dance and sing and clap for these men who have killed thousands of people? Because there's a part in our play in the very end where we sing out the word amahoro, which means peace, and we end up joining hands, dancing and clapping, and it becomes a whole kind of festival at the end. And I remember I tugged on the shirt of Molly, and I tugged on the shirt of Drew, and I said, I don't know if I could do this. How am I going to hold the hands of these men? Or what if I don't? Am I a bad person for not doing that? So if you go to the next slide, you can play it. So this was right after we finished our play, and that's a thank you clap that they do in Rwanda. And they do that all over Rwanda after a performance. That's how you thank someone. And you can see, it's a little blurry. There I was. Did you notice anything about my face in particular at all? Was I sad? Was I happy? Oh, you can play it again, yeah. And happy, right? Yeah. I ended up, I was saying Murakoze Chani, meaning like thank you very much to them because they applauded our performance. And I was not only thanking them for the clapping, but for sharing that moment and for the whole question and answer the whole day. We were only there for maybe an hour, hour and a half that day. But after this, we had to get on the bus and leave. And I was crying, but this time it wasn't because of my dad's story. It wasn't because I was scared of these men, but it was because I did not want to leave these men. I was connected to them. I knew they were dads, they were uncles, they were grandfathers, some of them, and they were human. So by not thinking about what they've done and not worrying about what might happen if I hold their hands, thinking about we instead of just me, I was able to overcome any of my worries and end up crying and laughing, this crazy, chaotic, emotional ride because of this experience. But it was one of the most meaningful experiences I've ever had that I, like I said, think about several times a day. And when I was able to watch these videos while making this presentation, I was just, the tears were coming because to see them happening again was amazing. So thank you, Eve and Bruce, for documenting all of that. So this was a blog I wrote when we left. It says, I shared with the village that I wasn't sure how comfortable I would be with grabbing the hands of these men to sing and dance at the end of the play. However, I dropped the notion of me and returned to the mindset of we. By the end of the play, I found myself pumping up all of the men and grabbing their hands and wanting to continue dancing and singing for the rest of the day. It was really hard to understand my emotions at that point and how much my view of the men had changed. After our performance, when we finished dancing and singing with the prisoners, I began to cry again, but this time it was because I didn't want to leave. And I remember Drew telling me, you are consistently inconsistent, because I was like, Drew, I don't know if I could do this, I'm so scared. But by letting all that go and being present, I was like, we have to leave? What? No, I want to stay. Let's go make some bricks. I never, not really. I never thought I'd be having that kind of flip, though. So we did some teacher training. Yes. And this was one of our days at Wellspring Academy, which Anne Frank Project has worked with them before. And these are not just teachers, these are teacher trainers. So our outreach after training them is exponential. So they have a new curriculum educationally coming out, and it started February 1st. So they were really pumped up about this because it's moving from learning-based to competency-based, learning by doing. So drama-based education that the Anne Frank Project has a heavy focus on was perfect. They valued this. It gave them vocabulary for the feelings they were having about this new curriculum. So here we are doing one of our little plays. We took them through the process of developing a theme, a structure, and a style, which any story needs. And as you can see, it was a lot of fun. And I was really present for this because not only do you need to be present to perform for the play, it's the same thing for teaching and doing another mini play. You have to be in the moment, listening to people around you.
Oh, no.
So I needed to share that one because this was at about 4:30 in the afternoon. We had been training teachers since 8 a.m. I'd been up since 5:30. If we were in America, I'd probably pull my phone out, get back on the bus, and say, what's for dinner? And want to just, all right, that was enough being present, I want to go. But this place tests you, and things like this happen if you listen and you're being present. So not only are you able to have meaningful experiences like the Teach Camp, but these fun moments happened a lot when you were willing to just separate any distractions and just be there with them. So this is a journal that I wrote on January 2nd. This place will change you. You will feel like you're home here. It won't really seem like you're on another continent. I think it'll be more of an awareness from those who are home waiting for your return. You will question any morals or ways you've developed in the States. You won't understand how everyone is so happy. You will notice how firmly your hands will be held by the children. You will find moments when the camera is not appropriate. You will find strength as an individual. You will see how grass should grow and how cows, chickens, and goats belong and live. You won't search for distractions. You will experience giving like never before. You'll wish you knew other languages. You will see and understand what is truly necessary and what is not in order to survive. You will wish to stay here forever. You will wave, smile, and breathe a lot. Your eyes will open. So this was a few days after we'd arrived, and I remember writing this after Nyamata on the bus, all in one go. That's like a jam-packed go, if you will. And the reason I share this is especially the line where I say, you will not search for distractions. I think that connects to my theme quite well, because being present is letting go of all the distractions and choosing to be here. So that's what I have for today. Here are a couple pictures of me enjoying the bliss of being present. One where I'm painting at Anima Art Center in Kigali. They laid out some canvas and paints for us and let us go at it, which was really awesome. And this is at Akagera National Park, which is under government conservation laws. So all the animals we saw there, no one can come poach them. It's a really beautiful place, and Tanzania is in the background there. So I'd like to thank Eve and Drew and everyone who came today, anyone who supported me, donated, and the VSLC for looking into helping me with the scholarship. So thank you.